It's time for the Money Puzzle Podcast. With good conversations and realistic solutions to the money puzzles we all face every day. I'm your host, financial advisor, chartered financial consultant, and president of Edgen Insurance and Financial, Robert Edgen. Now let's get this show started. Hi there, hello, and welcome to the Money Puzzle Podcast. I am Robert Edgen, and I'll be your guide for the ride for the next few minutes. Each week, we look at a different piece of the money puzzle and practical ways to solve it so you can have the financial confidence you deserve and the future that you dream of. That's Brian Johnson, who's here with me in studio today. Thanks for joining us, Brian. My business.
Am I here?
My business dude from another. Your mom's name isn't Jude, is it?
No.
Oh, that would have been awesome.
But it did take 2.5 hours to get here. It was awful this morning.
So, well, I can tell it's showing on you. It's wearing on your face.
Traffic construction is horrible.
It's always bad here. This is episode number 35, and today we're talking about the second part of the list that we started last week: important moves to make in your 30s.
Can I remember them?
So, yes, last week we talked about, we're counting them down from 8 to 1. So last week we talked about college funding.
College funding was number 8.
Number 7.
Wills and power of attorney.
That's right. Buying a home the right way was number 6.
Yep.
Number 5.
Simplified financial plan.
A simplified financial plan. We're doing this whole series on what to do, the important money moves to make in each decade of your life. So we've looked at the 20s. Now we're doing your 30s. And like we said last week, there is a lot of stuff that you should do when you're in your 30s.
Oh, man, a lot. Yeah.
You are hopefully now secure and fully in your adult life. So that means it's time to do all of the adult things that you put off in your 20s that you need to do, because the sooner you do these things, the better off your future self is.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll go over some numbers, too. It's fantastic if you do it right.
It's fantastic if you do it right. So, all right. So I can't wait to finish that conversation today. But before we do, I do a lot of reading and research. I come across different news headlines and articles that catch my eye. So I thought we would take a minute and look at some news. All right, today's news headline comes to us from National Public Radio, and the headline reads, burglars lift $2 million worth of body-shaping Spanx undergarments.
What?
I know. This is crazy.
They better be women.
Well, you're talking about the burglars?
Yes. Who does this?
It's like saying, only men can steal power tools?
You may wear Spanx, but I don't.
It doesn't say that they're going to wear $2 million worth of Spanx. Let's see what the article says.
Okay.
How's that? These burglars came prepared. They cut a hole through a concrete roof and shimmied down into a warehouse. They disabled the alarms and escaped with $2 million, which equated to 34,000 pairs of high-end Spanx-like garments. They're called fajas. That's the brand. Popular in Miami. The robbery took place at last year, but was just made public.
Miami, Florida, or Miami, Ohio?
Miami, Florida. And it says the burglars behind the estimated $2 million plunder have yet to be found. It's
maybe
pretty crazy.
If they look for people that are well shaped under their pants, they may find them.
So I asked a couple of ladies about this. I'm like, why would people steal $2 million? So apparently, these things are expensive.
Are they really?
They're like, 50, 60, 70, $80 to buy a pair or more. So if you stole them for free and then you were selling them on eBay, let's say for $25, $30, we're talking about 34,000 pairs. Even if they sold them for $10 a pair, that's $340,000. So at $20 a pair, we're talking about $680,000.
They must be entrepreneurs.
So they must be. And they haven't gone to jail. I hope they do. They should just look for the very well-shaped people running around Miami, which is probably half of Miami. All right, that's an interesting article.
Unless it's Miami of Ohio.
Well, I've never been there, but I would imagine they're less well-shapen. Yeah. All right, if you want to read that article, I've got the link down in the show notes from today. It is interesting. There is more. And here's another crazy part. This isn't the first time that this particular warehouse got hit. I think last time it was 18,000 pairs of Spanx. They're going to have armed guards guarding their Spanx. It's crazy. I don't
even know what to say.
Anyways, all right, go check out that Full news story in the show notes. That's it for that now. You do have something to say.
No,
Okay.
no.
You're speechless?
I am.
So now, and unfortunately, now you know what I bought you for Christmas.
All right.
And the good news, I bought them on eBay. They were only $20.
So what are you telling me?
Nothing. I'm just telling you what I got. Okay. All right, check that out. That's it for today's news. Let's go ahead and get to today's hot topic. All right, so for today's hot topic, we are finishing up the conversation from last week. We had 8 money moves you should make in your 30s.
Right.
We went through the first 4 today, and as we go through the next 4, these are getting more important in priority. Not that any of them are not important.
Right.
They are all important, but just more important priority. So we started in your 20s. I suggested you should get a 10-year term, and we talked about why in that. So it's 2 episodes ago. Go check it out. But I suggested a $250,000 term for 10 years. Well, 10 years later, now in our 30s, you got to do something with it.
Right, because what happens when that term runs out?
It doesn't actually go away, which is what a lot of people think.
Yeah,
but
what happens?
Your price goes up 10, 20, 30 times what it was.
It does.
So what happens after a 10-year term is the insurance companies basically encourage you to let it go away because the rates become astronomical.
It does, but if you don't do anything about it, they will draft that next high premium.
Oh, absolutely. We talked last time, or about in the 20s, that, one of the benefits of having a 10-year term policy is the conversion privilege, because you are probably the healthiest you're ever going to be in your 20s, hopefully, Hopefully. Hopefully you're that healthy forever, but anyways, you're probably your healthiest you're ever going to be in your 20s. So by now converting it in your 30s, you can maintain that same health classification.
That's right. So if you're preferred and you convert it, there's no medical...
No questions.
Nothing. It's an automatic happening.
I had somebody ask me yesterday, well, what happens if my life changes? I said, you could become a smoking, drinking, skydiving who lands in the water to do scuba diving. With sharks. None of it would matter.
That's right.
Because they don't ask any questions.
Right. Well, the one thing that does change, though, they do rate you based on your current age.
Well, absolutely, yes. So it changes on price, but it doesn't change your rating classification.
That's correct.
And that's very important. So what should you convert it to?
Well, again, now it depends, right? If you have a family, 30 years. At minimum, if you have a family, convert it to a 30-year. And then in some circumstances, depending on what your assets are and stuff, you could add a lifetime term. So
that's right. You could do, you want to convert it to either a 20-year, a 30-year, a lifetime, at least 20 years. Yep. But kind of like we talked about in the 20s, you'll now have a new conversion privilege. So if you have a 20-year term or a 30-year term, then now you've got that amount of coverage locked in, for that next 20, 30 years. And then you can still convert again
to a policy that lasts your lifetime.
That's right. And keep your preferred, super preferred, whatever
and
rating.
Again, you'd be re-rated based on your current age only.
Current age only, no questions asked. But the other thing to check when you are now converting that is just, do I need to adjust my amount? So we talked last week about one of the things to do is a simplified financial plan. Well, part of that is looking at your insurance. How much life insurance do you need? So you may have found out that, hey, I did $250,000 when I'm in my 20s because this guy named Robert told me to.
But and then you're like me and you have 4 kids later.
That's right. And now you need $400 million.
Right. My wife would like that.
So you need a heck of a lot more when you have 4 kids.
Right.
Or a house.
Yep.
Right. Or you started a business.
Yeah.
Or whatever it might be. So it's a great time just to readjust and reevaluate. All right. So that was number 4. Brian, what's number 3?
Increasing your emergency fund.
So absolutely.
Yeah, you need to start looking at, now I use an emergency fund for expenses.
So I call it emergencies or opportunities.
Right.
Yeah.
I like having money there for the what ifs, right? You're going to have, especially with young kids, you are going to meet your deductible on your health insurance, so you need to have that money set aside.
That's right.
Putting money aside for braces, repair of the house, purchasing a car in the future. Now that you have 4 kids, a sedan doesn't work so well.
So, no, I never had 4 kids, so it worked just fine.
Yeah, so van, that's all that type of stuff. But having money there, so if you lost your job for a period of time, you wouldn't have to take money out of your
investments.
Out of your investment account. You do not want to do that.
Or rack up debt.
Right. Or you don't want to take any job that just comes along, because the gas station is always there. But if you're an engineer, you still want a job in the engineering field.
You still want to
give you some time to make a good decision.
Yeah. Well, plus I have discovered that the older I get, the more expensive my emergencies become. Right. And a lot of times it's not even just my emergencies.
Right.
A few years ago, or a year ago, whatever, my wife's dog needed a knee replacement. Now I know in your part of the world,
it's called a 22.
So yeah, I was going to say that means you humanely put the dog down. In my part of the world, that means we go buy our dogs new knees.
Yeah, it's called a hole with a bone and a 22.
Listen, man, we obviously think differently.
No, I would not do that to my dog. Absolutely not.
What about your wife's dog? Don't even answer that question. Here's the bottom line. Expenses get bigger and emergencies become bigger when they happen.
They do.
So instead of having 3 months reserve, which we talked about in your 20s, get it up to 6 months by the time you get through your 30s.
Yep.
So, okay. That was number 3. Number 2, increase your savings, and specifically your retirement savings, to 15% of your pay. Okay. So in your 20s, we talked about start saving 10% of your pay. And we broke it down into some short-term goals versus some long-term, because you might want to get married, buy a house, have some kids, so those things cost money.
Right. Hopefully in that order.
That's right. But, when you're in your 30s, it's time to get your retirement savings up to 15% of your pay. Minimum.
Right.
That's right. So where do you put it? Well, first things first, you should always max out your company match if you've got a 401k, and they'll contribute if you contribute.
Right.
And we talked about that in your 20s. So you've got some examples in there on how that works if you need to go back and listen to it. But what about after that? What if I've maxed out the match that they give me? What's next?
Look for the Roth. So whether it's a Roth 401k, we talked about that a little bit, or your Roth IRA. So if you have just a traditional 401k, in other words, you get a tax deduction now, you reduce your income, right, on your taxes, and then you pay taxes later. Preferably, we would do the Roth, where it grows tax-free and comes out tax-free.
That's right. And if you've got a job, or you work for an employer that offers a 401k, check and find out, do they offer a 401 Roth?
That's right.
As a part of that. Some do, some don't.
Some, yeah.
Right. In fact,
more and more are doing it these days.
Yeah, but you may not work for a job that offers anything. So if that's the case, then you want to look at doing your own Roth IRA or regular IRA, or a combination, just based on some tax, tax questions. So, but regardless, 15%. Now, I looked, if you put away $10,000 a year beginning in your 30s, and you do it till you're beginning when you're 30, and you do it till you're 65 years old, that's $1.8 million a year.
Not enough.
So if you increase it to 15,000, so if you're making 100,000 a year, 15% is $15,000. That gets you to $2.8 million as a part of your retirement plan. Okay. So that's a great amount of money, but regardless, you've got to get your retirement savings up to 15% by the time you get to the end of your 30s.
Right.
So, okay. 20% would be even better.
It would.
But 15% is a great minimum to look for. So, okay. And again, you don't have to, oh my gosh, I'm 30. I'm going to go from 10 to 15 overnight. Now, that's awesome if you do, right? But this is things to work up to and work through when you're in your 30s.
Yeah, idea. Every time you get a raise, bump up your 401k a little bit.
So that's right. Or I like doing an adjust. I'll tell clients who are working towards it. Start off with 3%, and then every 6 months make it 4, and then 5, and then 6, and then 7. So you make a 1% pay adjustment every 6 months. You hardly even notice it.
Right. No.
So before you know it, you're giving 120% of your income right to your retirement accounts.
Or the government.
So, or both. Okay, that was what?
Number
4, 3, 2. We've got one left. And Brian, what is it? Because this is literally your favorite thing to talk about in life.
Paying off debt.
Paying off debt. So we started in your 20s talking about student debts.
Right. And so when you're thinking about paying off debt, my priority is no credit cards, no home loan, car payments.
Yep.
The home loan doesn't bother me as much. But in that, what I ended up doing, I did a 15-year on mine when we readjusted everything. And that was in my 30s that I did that. We had 23, 24 years left of our mortgage. No, actually, it was like 22 years left. And then I refinanced it down to a 15 in my 30s.
Well, and if you're doing smart things like we talked about, buying a house the right way, which we talked about last time, putting 20 to 25% down, then you can afford to do a 15-year mortgage.
Well, especially today at around 3%. What are they going today? I don't know. They're cheap.
They're cheap. Yeah. So it's a great thing to do is, to pay off all non-home debts.
All of it.
Right? So in your 30s is a great time to work through that. Get rid of the credit cards, get rid of the car payments, get rid of the personal loans.
Yep.
Get rid of the whatevers that, that are taking away money that you could be putting to use for better.
What does Dave Ramsey say about it? Your best wealth building tool is your income. And if it's going towards debt, you're not building wealth.
So, no, you are. It's just somebody else's wealth.
Right. Oh, yeah, you're building somebody else. The guys that own bank stocks, we like you.
So, that's right. And the banks like you a lot, too. Okay, So, counting them down from last week through this week.
Okay, all of them.
Yep, we did. Number 8 was college funding if you've got kids.
Yep.
Okay. Number 7?
Wills and power of attorney.
If you're married. Yeah, specifically. Number 6, buying a home and doing it the right way.
Yep. Number 5 is a simplified financial plan.
Number 4, convert that 10-year term that you were smart enough to start in your 20s, now convert it to a 20, 30, or lifetime term. Okay.
And then number 3 is increasing your emergency fund to 6 months.
6 months
of expenses.
6 months of expenses. Yeah. Thanks for that clarification. So if your income is $10,000 a month, you don't necessarily need $60,000. But if your expenses are $10,000 a month, how much do you need? $60,000. That's right. Okay. Number 2, increase your retirement savings to 15%. Yep. And number 1,
paying off all your debts. Except for your house.
Except for their house. We'll talk about that in upcoming decades.
Absolutely.
So it won't be decades from now.
No.
We'll be talking about different decades. So, all right, that's it for this week. Thanks for following along. Hopefully that brought some value to you. If it did, please share it with somebody who needs to hear it. Watch us on YouTube. Give us some thumbs up, some likes, some comments. And if you've got any questions about your own money puzzle, feel free to email them to us, questions@yourmoneypuzzle.com. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so there you go.
So I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. And until next week, be safe, have some fun, and do something to improve your money puzzle. Your future self will thank you for it.
Registered representative of and securities offered through Securities Management and Research, Inc., SM&R. Member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through BFC Planning, Inc. Edgen Insurance and Financial Services, Johnson Financial Services, SM&R, American National Family of Companies, and BFC Planning are independent entities. There are risks involved with investing which may include market fluctuation and possible loss of principal value. Particular investments may not be suitable for certain situations. Carefully consider the risks and possible consequences involved prior to making an investment decision. Our firm does not provide legal or tax advice. Be sure to consult with your own legal and tax advisors before taking any action that may have tax implications.